I'd like to call this meeting of the Sustainability Commission to order. Thank you all for being here tonight. We have a couple of commissioners attending online also, correct, Danielle?
I've not seen them yet. Dennis is having some technical difficulty, but oh, there's Aaron. So we'll see if we get Dennis. There he is. Oh no, it's Dennis. Ian is going to coordinate with Dennis on the back end, but I think we can probably get started. He's there now. Oh, there he is.
All right, we're good. The quorum anyway, for sure. And all right, thank you. So we're starting the meeting. Danielle, or would you like to read the script?
Yep. So good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us in this hybrid meeting format. Just a quick housekeeping note before we begin this evening's meeting. For the members of the public who are joining the meeting via computer, device, or phone, please be advised that your microphone, webcam, and phone are automatically muted when you enter the meeting as an attendee. Commissioners, as a panelist, you are able to mute or unmute your video and mic at your discretion, though we ask you to please mute yourself when you are not speaking. If you wish to participate during the public comment portion of the meeting and haven't already done so, please raise your virtual hand now to join the speakers queue in one of two ways. For those viewing the meeting on a computer, laptop, or other device, click once on the blue hand icon. For those listening to the meeting on a phone, press *9. We will lower hands as speakers are called upon. When the public comment begins, we will announce your name and unmute your microphone. You will have 2 minutes to speak, after which your microphone will again be muted. And if you're here in person to give public comment, just make sure you've signed in. Regarding the chat and Q&A functionality of Zoom, please note that attendees will not be able to use these features. Commissioners, we ask that you do not utilize the chat function for any purpose other than technological assistance, as attendees will not have access to these conversations. Lastly, in accordance with the passage of HB 4212, this meeting will be recorded. Recordings will be posted to the Sustainability Commission website. And as always, feel free to contact the Sustainability Commission if there's testimony you were not able to provide or wish to get to us in a different format. And with that, I turn the meeting back over to Chair Bowman.
So first of all, we will review and approve the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda? Are we good? We do have a new commissioner with us tonight, so we'll take a few minutes to let her introduce herself and let others do that. And shall we do that in the commissioner? Oh no. Well, let's just do that right after the land acknowledgement. Or after we were going to do it right after public comment. Yeah, that's right. Let's do that. Okay. So item 3, and then
no, sorry, we're going to do the welcome new Commissioner Lily Yao right before public comment. Sorry, it's in the new agenda.
Oh, okay, I must have opened the old one. I've got the meeting packet open. Okay, thank you. That would so helpful. Thank you so much. Right after one. So first of all, we're going to review and approve this agenda. Other than and then we have that on our agenda. So anything else? Any other changes? So I move to approve the agenda. Second. All in favor? Yay. Thank you. And then the October minutes. Are there any changes to the minutes?
I did change a couple things in the minutes. I accidentally said Chair Devin Man. I changed it back to Vice Chair. Apologies there. And then Aaron Tony's had one correction too on a comment he had made. So I fixed that.
Okay. Other than that, anyone else? Any changes? Motion to approve? Motion to approve? Second. Okay. All in favor? Right. Okay. Got that business taken care of. So then next we have the land acknowledgement.
I signed up to do that,
okay.
And I'm going to have some help today, which I very much appreciate. So I found a 40th restoration celebration event for the Grand Ronde tribal members that's happening on November 19th, Sunday. at the Spirit Mountain Casino, and I am just finding out, there was a little. I was looking into trying to research what this was about more, but there's a little glitch loophole in the find out more information, so thank you for supporting me in that. But I found out what restoration means, so.
Yeah, so the Grand Ron tribe is celebrating when they're getting their federally recognized status back, because in the 1950s, the federal government terminated the status of many tribes and took away all their, just took away everything, and so the tribes had to fight to get it back. So you oftentimes, when you see these restoration celebrations, it's celebrating that day that they got it back, and the Grand Ron tribe got it back in 1983. So they were terminated from 1954 to 1983. Very much. I just got one thing. There's a great novel by Lewis Erdrich called The Night Watchman. That's kind of a, so you know, it's a historical fiction book about that. If you aren't familiar with it, and or if you just want to read an excellent book, I recommend that.
Very cool. I realized I probably should have given an intro to this for people who are here visiting or new. We have decided to do our land acknowledgement a little differently rather than simply reading a statement. And actually Laura started this in her term as chair last year, presenting something that's more action oriented that people can do to participate or educate themselves or somehow, you know, get more involved in that. And we've been approved to do it that way. And then we're taking turns in the group, taking responsibility for that from month to month. So thanks very much.
Does anyone want to volunteer to do it next time? That's how we've decided to do it.
That's right.
You leapfrog me or leapfrog.
Yours. Okay, we'll start drawing straws then. Put some names in a bucket and pull names.
I can do it.
Would you do it? That would be great.
This is what I find.
That would be great, Hannah. And I have failed in my responsibility to send out what we had. It was some websites and things to people. I promise I will do that this time, and that will help me as a place to start. But you can also call on people.
So I ended up finding a calendar, which was really helpful. And so I had to report out, I looked it up last month. So I reported out an event that was taking place after this meeting, but it's nice to know that there is a calendar of happenings out there. But that would also be helpful.
Yeah.
Any resources.
We'll send it out and everybody can tag on if you have other resources that aren't. That'd be great. Thank you very much. And last month's event is still going on, the Native American Arts and Crafts Market at the Farmers Market will happen again on December 3rd. Another opportunity. Okay, so with that, now we are moving on to item number 2, which is to welcome our new commissioner, Billy Yao. And actually, Danielle may have a little bit more information about Lily's background, and you'll share a little bit, but Lily is a South Eugene High student. She's been very active in climate work there. And she's on the mayor's youth advisory council. We're super, super, super excited to have her here. And so we're going to let Danielle, you want to add to her, or we'll just let her take it away. You can say what you want to say, and then we'll all do a quick introduction of ourselves for her.
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Lily Yao. As Jan mentioned, I am a sophomore at South Eugene High School. I have 2 dogs, and in my spare time, I like to play tennis and ultimate frisbee. I'm really grateful to have the chance to be here. Mayor Vinnis gave me the opportunity to be here as a member of the Mayor's Youth Advisory Council, and I'm really honored to be able to have a voice in this discussion.
And just to follow up on that, she was officially appointed by to fill the Ward 4 seat by Councilor Ye. So that just happened like this well, we got it finalized today at like 3 p.m.
I was gonna say, yeah, it's very, very last minute, so it's not like she's had any time to get, you know, any orientation yet. So take it easy on her today. But let's go around the table, and if you just give your name, maybe how long you've been on the commission, and if there's something real quick you want to say about why you're here, that would be great.
Yeah, I'm Hannah. This is my 3rd year here on the commission, and yeah, I've always been passionate about sustainability. And I'm newer to Oregon and moved here in 2020, and for work, I do hazard mitigation, recovery work for Benton County now. So trying to tie that. Yeah.
Go to Karen.
Hi Lily, welcome. So glad that you're here, and it's just really exciting to see some really good activist energy coming from the youth. It's really important, and it's an honor to have you serving us. My name is Karen Kaplan, and this is my 4th year on the commission. I'm retired from the University of Oregon, where I worked as a manager of the zero waste program. So sustainability holds a really key part in my foundation, and I also am honored to be here and serving with people to make a difference in our community and to affect the positive global capitalism. So thank you.
I'm Laura Allen. I believe this is my 5th year on the commission.
Your second term, right?
My second, yeah, the beginning of my. I feel Laura. Science student.
I'm Mitra Ruel, and I'm an upcycle fashion designer. So I do that in addition to, I just recently got the position of the Fix It Fair coordinator for Eugene Toolbox project and community engagement coordinator for Mecca. So I'm going to be producing events focused on upcycled art and sustainability, repairs, all that. So I really enjoy educating and engaging about sustainability.
I know we met before, but I'm Devin, and I'm a biologist and a teacher and a professional volunteer, also a South alum, just saying. Still the same. But I'm super excited to have a high school student on this commission. I may be the most excited person at this meeting. I think it's really so important to hear what you guys have to say, because you're the future.
And I'm Jan Bowman, and we've met, and this is my 3rd year on the commission. I retired from the city of Eugene, where I worked for a long time, and I guess I would say I'm kind of a community involvement junkie, and also an outdoors kind of person, and so I've come into climate work that way and wanting to help community advance our goals. So I'm thrilled to have a young participant, and I'm really glad that the mayor and Councilor Ye got together.
Chris Yorgis, 2nd year. Small business, and then the head track and cross country coach at Lane Community College in my spare time. And like Jan was saying, I love the outdoors and have had amazing experiences with family and taking a lot of youth camps and things like that. And so we want to preserve those opportunities so that we can experience nature the way that it's supposed to be. And welcome.
Should we go to Aaron and Dennis?
Yeah, my name is Dennis Reynolds, and I am a mostly retired Unitarian Universalist minister, and had a prior career, which was my introduction to sustainability issues. I was the director of the Moss Street Children's Center at the university, which built in 2004, 2005, was sustainable technology at the time, and other buildings are catching up. So I became engaged in knowledgeable about that work then, and more committed when I became a grandparent 3 years ago. So welcome, welcome. I have a couple of kids that graduated from South.
And Aaron.
Hi, Lily. Nice to meet you. I'm Aaron. Really glad you're here. I just want to echo what everybody else has said. It's nice to have you in the room and your voice here. I worked as a sustainability and climate consultant for a long time, and currently I work at St. Vincent de Paul on buildings and energy issues, and looking forward to working with you. Thanks for being here.
Great. We're gonna have to work on his volume. I don't know if that's on his end or our end. Okay. So, thank you. And so now we're on the third item, public comment and commissioner response. So we have some public, members of the public here tonight and signed up to speak. You have the list.
Yes. So first is Paul Edgecombe. Thank you. Where would you like me to?
Well, maybe down here, because then the microphone will pick you up. Down.
Okay.
Our first time having live members of the public to testify, at least this year, so.
And I'll just,
We're
I'll
everywhere.
I'll be keeping time, so everyone
How
gets 2
much?
minutes.
2 minutes.
2
All right.
minutes.
I'm here to hope you'll consider adding biophilia as a concept to the sustainability. We mean by biophilia the sort of notion that human beings want to live next to green things. And our group started this spring. Basically, we were retired landscape architects, and we were wondering how we could improve the green roofs and green walls that we see so prominently. Well, they have over 500 of them. And I just got back from a conference in Vancouver, British Columbia, where people from the Cascadia region, which goes from almost Alaska, clear down to Northern California. It's this Cascadia region, where they're presenting ideas about what it took to bring these sort of facilities to a cityscape. And our group, in fact, we didn't know that there was a sustainability committee. And he said, do you live under a rock? I said, yes, it's green, moss covered. Anyway, I wrote him a letter that sort of explains sort of what we're trying to do. And I think we could start, if you decide that that's something that you want to include in sustainability, by events at the library, forums, sustainability conferences that we're involved with, which are the Green Roofs for Healthy Cities that you may know about out of Ontario. And so that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
That was 3 minutes. But
On the website?
no.
Oh, on mine. Good evening, commissioners and staff. My name is Patty Hine, and I am a volunteer with 350 Eugene, and I'm the president of that organization as a climate justice organization. Thank you for the opportunity to talk with you this evening. I want to thank you for your work. This commission is very important in its role for lifting up the community's priorities in front of the city council to support the strongest possible sustainability policies. And your work ultimately promotes a safe, healthy, and climate safe future that we all need, especially. You guys are all often called super volunteers. We have a term for that in the climate community. You're super vols, and your dedication helps to build the trust we the people need to have in our government, especially now. We're very grateful for the professional leadership of staff, and will urge the city to prioritize assigning more staffing and resources to you and your team. We're excited about the commissioner's upcoming year, focusing on working to align with the two recommendations and increasing the community's awareness and getting engaged out there. Thank you for your brief at the work session on Monday and for your effective meeting out. Very important. We look forward to more public engagement. In the past, there were open meetings with the large labor shareholders in that day. We're wondering if there will be any other public meetings planned. We hope so. And as the climate community here, we'd like to be part of that and to help you in your education efforts so we can garner support for the things that need to be done. Commissioners, congratulations on your ambitious work plan. It's going to be a very busy year with the important work at all levels to interpret and implement the game-changing federal laws that have been passed along with Oregon's recently passed climate resiliency packages. Our local work is super important, and yours has just become stronger and stronger each year. Keep up the good work. There's no time to lose. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So,
I checked the Jan, she said we had 3 minutes.
interesting. No, my script says 2 minutes.
Yeah, no, I'll be quick. Good evening, commissioners. My name is Roger Knudsen. I'm relatively new to Eugene. My wife and I moved here last year from Dallas, Texas. After many years of climate activism in Dallas, I had the privilege of serving for 15 months on what Dallas called the Stakeholders Advisory Committee that participated in the writing of Dallas's first climate action plan. That plan was approved by Dallas City Council Earth Day 2020. So when I arrived in Eugene, I was impressed and excited to learn that Eugene was a real trailblazer, having written its climate action plan years ahead of Dallas. But when I tried to understand just what's been accomplished under that plan, I found the city's website to be, may I say politely, not very user-friendly. Wanting to be involved in climate action work locally, I joined 350 Eugene. So I began to ask 350 members about accomplishments of the plan. The typical response I got, and these are very committed activists here, were rolled eyeballs and shrugged shoulders. One feature of the Dallas Climate Action Plan was having measurable outcomes with milestones that could be reported on annually. To find out what's going on the plan that I worked on, all I have to do is look at dallasclimateaction.com to see that 94% of year 2 work plan was completed. That's 248 completed milestones across the 8 divisions of that plan. An easy to access dashboard gives specific details in each sector, all in pie charts and plain English. You don't need an advanced degree to read that website. So I was very encouraged to hear on Monday night that your fiscal year 24 work plan goals include community engagement as a major category. I urge you to work toward a much more user-friendly city website that details the work that's already been completed, the work that's underway, new initiatives that will be undertaken, and specifics about greenhouse gas reductions linked to specific initiatives will be very valuable. I'm going to be watching your work with great interest. I look forward to seeing the results. Thank you all for serving on the commission, and thanks for the opportunity to share my opinions and the extra time.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Are there any other members of the public online?
Yeah, I think
Want to respond?
No, we
Can
can
we
do it
do it at the end? Yeah.
Ed Dorsch?
Hello?
Yes, we can hear.
Thank you. And thank you for your time. If you hadn't had the opportunity to read the recent article in the Oregonian about leaf blowers, I invite you to check it out. It's a good read. The headline is, more than 100 cities have banned gas leaf blowers. Will Portland be next? My hope is that Eugene could be next in banning gas-powered leaf blowers. As the article states, operating a gas blower for 1 hour is the equivalent of driving from Portland to San Diego, not in a Humvee, but in a Toyota Camry. As we talk about our climate action plan and look for ways nationally, at a statewide level and locally to reduce greenhouse gases, I can't think of a more effective and easy way to make a significant reduction in global warming pollution than to eliminate unnecessary 2-stroke motors, and particularly gas-powered leaf blowers. Thank you very much for your time.
Is next. Please go ahead.
Hello, this is Nancy Smith. Is this the time for me to speak?
It is.
Okay, thank you. I echo the previous speaker. I'm involved in a group here, Quiet Clean Eugene, and attended last spring a meeting where it was decided that a subcommittee would be set up to look into the issues of pollution with the gas leaf blowers. And I guess that, and it was said that that would happen in the fall, but I guess that has not formed. There is a lot of information about the hazards of this, the pollutants, on all levels. Air pollution, you know, all of the things that we're very concerned about, the microparticles that are stirred up by this, and then the noise pollution and the concern about the workers that use these. I was at the Stryker Park event, which is just, the Stryker Park is just down the street from me in Ward 4. We had a table and there were lots of people very concerned about the use of gas leaf blowers in the area, lots of manicured lawns in this area. And the irony was that for the first hour, there was a park worker with a gas leaf blower, very loud, going back and forth in front of our table. So I understood from the last meeting, some of the notes that people felt like this was not an issue and that most of the park workers were using electric equipment and leaving leaves as they are, but that's not the case in this neighborhood, where the two parks we have in this neighborhood have manicured lawns and are tended with loud polluting gas machinery frequently. So I would like to be helpful. I sent a message to the group an hour or two ago with a link about the issue. Lane County is among the worst in the nation. If you look at if you can find that link and look at that, you can see state by state, and Lane County is one of the darkest red ones as far as the pollutants that come from yard care machinery. So I would like to help with information to the commission. I was looking forward to working with the subcommittee for that. If you can let us know how to help you understand more and move forward on this.
Your time's up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are the other persons wanting to speak, or is that they're just? Okay, thank you to all the members of the public who are here tonight to speak. Now, commissioner responses.
I thought you just raised her hand.
Oh, all right.
Hello, sorry about that. Hi, thanks again for having this meeting, having an opportunity to speak. I'm Ashwini, I'm with Quiet Clean Eugene. Just wanted to quickly dovetail off of what Ed and Nancy talked about, and also welcome Lily. It's great to see you on the commission. So yeah, thanks Ed and Nancy for providing the essential info around the hazards of gas-powered leaf blowers. And I appreciate Danielle's updates from last month's meetings on the city's policies and practices on our electric to date. So it's clear that the city's already thinking about this. It's in their ethos, that a transition from gas to electric is not only desirable, but necessary at this point. I was heartened by, for instance, one update that there has been a purchase of 10 light duty vehicles that could double as charging stations for electric lawn equipment, while the cities operate on those areas for departments that need leaf blowers for all day full use with 3 to 4 people per crew. So my question is kind of where I sort of came from there was, yes, this is a great place to start, but whether they have to be in use all day, full use with 3 to 4 people per crew, that's a question that could be assessed in some sort of a baseline analysis assessment. So though these transitions may be happening internally, I do think it's critical that there are mechanisms in place throughout departments that commission gas lawn equipment to collect baseline data that we need to make informed, empirically driven policy decisions. Gas leaf blowers are an intuitive place to start as a low-hanging fruit, with the furthest development in technology and price parity, and obvious public investment in a change to the status quo. So community members, as Nancy was talking about, we were at the Stryker Park opening, and we've heard lots of testimonials, and it's not only about noise. And it's not only about city equipment, right? People are impacted by the myriad landscaping businesses that are operating by no fault of their own, right, in their neighborhoods every day, but are using these gas-powered lawn equipment. And I've been told by a few people that working from home is rendered near impossible. They have to adjust their walking routes to avoid the leaf blowers. People operating these machines, obviously, some are just resigned to the fumes and noise as just being part of the rest of their employment life, but would welcome a switch. So our communities will benefit from a thoughtful, inclusive, and strategic plan to phase out gas leaf blowers. So I really urge the commission to reconsider a subcommittee for this particular multifaceted public and environmental health concern. Quiet Clean Eugene is continuing to grow, but the broader movement is growing as well.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
2 minutes. Thank you.
And a survey.
I don't see anyone else.
Okay.
Is signed up to talk.
All right,
I'm not seeing anybody else.
thank you. Okay, now. Laura.
I want to thank all of you for coming in person. It was really nice. People talking to us, so I appreciate all of you. And it's great to hear about your group. I wasn't aware of it forming, so it's nice to hear. And for the people talking about leaf blowers, someone else might comment on this, but another route is to find a city councilor who could champion that, because as a commission, we can only talk to council as you can talk to council directly. So that's something that you might want to do if you're not already doing that. And thank you for coming to share the information.
Yeah, I'd like to also say thanks to everybody. It is fun and exciting to have members of the public paying attention to what we're doing, coming to tell us about what they're thinking about it, what they think is important, and I think it's really great. So appreciate it very much, and it's all very important stuff to consider. All right. Thank you. Thanks very much. Tonight. The presentation about the street tree projects as part of the 2022 street bond.
Oh.
This has been my first in-person committee or commission meeting in a long time too, so it's kind of exciting. The vibe of real personal energies.
We're all still coming back from days of no.
Yeah. Do you want to see what? No. Actually, yeah. I'll share my screen.
That'd be great.
Probably.
I know.
Our icebreaker time. We'll get up and stretch.
Cookies?
You're looking good up. I know. Great.
Yeah.
stage, says hi.
Yep. Seems all right, thanks.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having us. We represent the green infrastructure and urban forestry teams. We're here to share a bit about our planning and recent funds we're going to be receiving from the transportation bond, out of the transportation bond dollars. So.
Could you tell us who you are?
Yes, that's next slide if I can get there.
Please no jumping.
Hold on.
ahead in the presentation.
Also, just remind all of us to try to remember to speak up and project our voices when we're talking because the microphones don't pick up so well.
Where is the microphone? Is
Yeah.
that bank in the
No,
middle?
it's like
in the
above
ceiling.
this, like,
Okay,
those are unplugged.
okay.
Awesome. So my name is Spencer Crawford. I'm the supervisor of the urban forestry program and the urban forester for the city of Eugene.
And Carrie Peterson, I'm the Green Infrastructure Maintenance Manager in Parks and Open Space. And my section contains urban forestry and vegetated stormwater facilities and the vegetated medians. So kind of all of the public services that are basically in the right of way.
We'll be taking turns throughout this. There we go. It's a big delay. All right. There we go. So we're here to share a bit about that street repair bond with you, kind of conceptually, how street tree component fits into the bond, and how our program would prioritizing using those funds to further the urban forest. We're committed to keeping you guys informed and coming back here over the next 5 years, which is a requirement of the bond, for us to present the information to you and receive feedback on that. I'm going to start today by sharing two main kind of areas that urban forestry does just in the day-to-day work, just to kind of give you a little bit of an overview of the program. After that, we'll move into the bond and how we're kind of talking of there's multiple types of work. Primarily it's street tree work, but we've kind of broken out street tree planting and watering as a tier, as the main body of the work. And then a second tier, a tier 2, we're calling as other work that facilitates the planting of street trees and helps us kind of get the most bang for our buck with those dollars. So we'll get into some specifics about what that is. It's still very early in the planning process. The work will really kick off in 2025 when we get access to the money, to the dollars there. But we're planning to start, we've already started preparing and planning about how we're gonna break out those funds, what kind of resources we need to start acquiring now, programmatically start standing up capacity so that we are using these dollars efficiently. There we go. So preventative maintenance. So here's kind of just a little bit of overview of our program. So the two main types I'm going to talk about and the largest components of urban forestry for us are our existing maintenance program. So we currently as a program maintain and keep the health of 65,000 trees in the right of way across the city. So those are street trees. Our team responds to the direct workers who work for the program in the city, work to deal with emergency response needs. So any hazards associated with the trees, making sure that we are safe and the trees are staying healthy and we're monitoring the condition of those trees so that we're all reaping the max benefits that they have to offer. We also have multiple technical crew internally to help facilitate that work. Some of those crews also manage contracts for private contractors, which our budget pays for. And that work predominantly is section by section block pruning. So while internal staff are there to be really responsive to the immediate need, we have contractors who we hire and meet our standard of work, who kind of go through and make sure limbs are up off the street, up off the sidewalk, kind of doing some general pruning where they kind of have just some long range plans and kind of just get as much done as possible, while our internal crews kind of need to be more nimble for us. Let's see. It's really important that we are using all those resources to help just preserve and protect the urban forest and getting the most highest level of ecosystem service benefits out of those trees while keeping the community safe and reducing liability for the city. Next slide. Next, the second part of our current program I'll discuss is planting program. Predominantly, historically, the work we've been doing planting is to facilitate when new development happens and new right of way is created in the city. So a new street is built. Developers are required to plant a street tree that's considered in code as an element of the transportation corridor, similar to a stop sign or a street light or the road surface itself, or the catch basins for stormwater systems. So as a part of that work, street trees are required to be planted. And we've had work for years who facilitate that, make sure that developers are planting those trees per our standards. But historically, we haven't been in the game of replacing trees that have been lost throughout time in the system. Our program has mainly been just kind of, our mission is to keep the health of those trees up, to keep the public safe, kind of all of the things in that parameter. And so that changed in 2020 when council dedicated $50,000 to our program to help really start the wade in the waters of how are we planting trees. So, trees die, the city's been around for over 150, around 150 years, and trees mature throughout that time. They're lost through health reasons, they're lost due to development. There's a lot of pressures on the disease of it, things like that. So this has kind of been the first opportunity for us to get in the game of replacing those trees as a part of our program. So now with the facilitation of the bond and $2 million spread over 5 years, we're able to really kind of use that program we've already developed over the last 3 years, scale it up to, with what we've learned, and try to make a bigger impact in that planting, in those planting efforts. So in that, there's a challenge there, and we learned about this challenge with taking the $50,000, and we have an existing program that we already monitor all this risk and maintain trees, and now we're adding planting, which our team is excited to do, about being a whole part of the whole tree's life and the whole system. But with the $50,000, one of the things we learned is that it takes a lot, it costs a lot to plant trees and to plan that work and to sustain trees and get them fully established, more than we knew, even as people who care for the trees. So part of what we're looking at in this program is how do we balance us continuing to have full capacity for the care of the existing urban forest, but being able to also take on this added planting where we have money to spend, but not necessarily a bunch of new internal full-time staff resources coming with that money. So we're working to balance that as we do this planning and figure out how we facilitate the use of those bond dollars best while also still providing the same level of service we have this way.
Yeah, so that's a little bit about two of our bigger program areas, and we wanted to talk about those because those are the ones that are most impacted by this influx of new funding. So jumping right into the 2025-2029 street repair bond, it's Eugene's fourth consecutive pavement preservation bond, and it was resoundingly approved by voters in November 22. Total $61.2 million. With 42 approved street repair projects over 44.6 lane miles distributed across all the wards. But in addition, and this is the part we're really excited about, there was 15 million dedicated to walking, biking, safety, and street tree projects. The bond includes a green streets strategy that it really is a first for any of our Eugene transportation bonds, and opens up a whole new way of thinking about our paving projects moving forward. And of course, we're here tonight to talk about that street tree category, and the bond language did specifically list this commission as the group that we would consult with on these projects. So here we are in our very early planning stages so that we can get a sense from you all if we're on the right track. The bond was also really specific about the criteria that would be used to select street tree projects. It's geographic distribution balanced with projects selected to increase equity and visibility of impact. An assessment of where street trees are most needed, including equity and urban heat island mapping, which is shown on the screen here, and where they're best suited in accordance with the approved street tree list. Of course, triple bottom line considerations of social equity, environmental health, and economic prosperity, and then the goals of the climate action plan too. The equity is called out in 3 of these 4 criteria. It tells us that it's pretty important. And luckily, these are the exact factors that we already use to prioritize determining our planting sites. So this is nothing new for us, and Spencer will tell you a little bit more about that in a minute. But first, let's dive into the climate action plan and its guidance specifically for the urban forestry program. So this is not news to you, but just, you know, don't know how deep you go in this. There's 6 actions specific to urban forestry: increasing canopy coverage, tracking and maximizing the ecosystem service benefits of the urban forest, updating our master plan, reach a steady 10-year pruning cycle, take a regional approach to partnerships and community engagement, and importantly, focusing on the soil enhancement of planting sites and establishing trees to ensure long-term health. These actions really are the touchstone of our program. They're not just on a page in the climate action plan. They guide our decision-making day to day. And as we scale up, when we have an influx of new resources like this bond. And like, look, I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir here, but we would be a little bit remiss not to mention why our urban forest is so important to livability in Eugene. And, you know, on the most basic level, trees cool our neighborhoods. They help fight climate change, clean air, clean water, like magic. And they encourage people to be healthy and active. However, trees are under greater pressure from climate change and development. This bond represents the first real significant investment in counteracting these challenges. What we want you to know is that we have the intention of exceeding all the expectations of this bond in the street tree category and keep the momentum going to continue the investment in this important infrastructure. These are so bad, and I'm having to like look over my glasses like my grandmother. Sorry about that.
You're not the only.
Okay, now Spencer's going to give a little more information about how we do determine those planting priorities.
Yeah, so here's a map. I'll just get into the kind of the metrics shown here, but this is a bunch of those factors overlaid visually for us. So currently the city has about 22% canopy coverage. And our goal as a program is to advance that in some of the climate action initiatives the council's bought off on to 30%. Right? We recognize that not only do trees have attrition though, but the forces in our world acting against them and making it harder for them to struggle are only increasing, right? So it's so timely to be doing this work and really doing the game as soon as we can. So given that we need to meet these metrics and kind of be attentive to them, we luckily have some tools at our disposal and are able now to really, as a part of our arsenal, make data-informed decisions rather than just relying on, you know, our knowledge or our gut intuition about where we should be. So one of those tools we're using is called Tree Plotter Canopy. It is a program that is accessible off the Urban Forestry Program's website on the city of Eugene. In that, there are tools that you can play around with a bunch of these factors. And I'll talk about some of the metrics that are being shown graphically here and what this means. The program assesses canopy coverage based upon percentages via satellite imagery and LiDAR to detect the size of a tree canopy and where that canopy is off the ground. So we can determine it is a canopy because it will detect 20 feet off the ground plane, for instance, rather than shrubs or other green foliage that can also be used as a metric. Not only that, it's able to track, we're able to overlay as part of this program, the heat island effect and some temperature irregularities or changes throughout our community. But beyond just kind of those physical or mapping that graphical area photo type data, we're also able to lay over the top of that cultural issues or things that are inferred and gathered via the census, the most recent census. So that includes household income, population of neighborhoods below the poverty line, vulnerable populations, employment percentages, education levels. And this tool allows us to use census data and other imagery, and you can kind of use any of those individual metrics and intensify them, make them count for more or count for less. So what we're seeing here in this map is that tool being used using all of those pieces of information, all of those layers stacked on top of each other. And where we see red in our community here is where there are more of those factors overlaid, and those factors are there's more separation in those factors in those communities. So the areas in red and orange here have the most amount of overlap of those kind of less economy, lower job numbers, less canopy coverage, and then the green and the lighter yellow are where those numbers are statistically better. And we have better, higher canopy coverage, better income ratios, things like that. So this is a significant tool we're able to just graphically show. We can use this tool now to overlay over other projects and really inform us from a high level, to meet the metrics of this bond. What communities do we need to be really doing this work in and prioritizing? And that's where we're focusing. Right tree, right location. So we use that map to kind of tell us, we need to be in this area of town, we need to be in this community. And then from there, there's a lot of work that goes into selecting, what specific site needs to get planted, what type of tree needs to go there, how big an impact, where do we have gaps in the urban forest already, and canopy coverage lacking kind of from a street by street level. So from there, we use that data, we go out on foot, and we start updating our inventory to make sure it's accurate. We have a point for every tree in the city, and we have a condition of that from the last time we were there inspecting that tree or working on that tree. So we're hand selecting sites out of that inventory and using determining factors based upon species selection, proper spacing, land use designations from the city, future development has that, improved the trees or kind of taken from the urban forest, planting strip widths and soil volume. So that we're planting the right tree for the right spot, and now that tree is going to get large in a tiny space, and there's going to be premature pressures on us to remove them because of the other infrastructure damage it's doing. We want to maximize the amount of tree we can get while also being cognitive of those impacts. We deal with them as a program, and the community does too. Overhead power lines, all those kind of factors. Those are factors we're already using now, but we're going to scale up the use of those tools for this larger effort. So now we're going to get into a little bit of the tier 1 and tier 2. I kind of mentioned that earlier in the process. So we have $2 million to do this work. And primarily the language of the bond says, the title of it is tree planting. There are other metrics and ways we can use that money kind of within the text, but we understand that predominantly it's tree planting. And that's kind of the main metric we're going to be evaluated on how successful we are using this money. How many trees do we get in the ground? So this is talking about tier 1 trees as we go through this are really the practice of planting that tree, the effort and finance it takes to plant that tree, and then to sustain that tree, which is watering over the next 3 years, is the industry standard for getting a full healthy establishment without them losing those trees. And I think that is so important because you may have also seen news stories and information about other communities that have planted a lot of trees in the ground, but then they kind of walk away, right? And the community response to all this upfront energy and effort going in, only to see those trees fail. And that isn't a very emotional response often. I know it is for our team, I know it is for the community. So we want to be really responsible with these trees and have that get as much as we can from them. Tier 2 projects are going to be dollars spent in other ways that help make that planting successful. So we'll get into some specifics here about what that is. So tier 2 plantings are going to be things like grinding stumps of trees that have historically died or been removed. We don't typically grind stumps of trees that have died because that stump kind of serves as a placeholder. Once we remove that stump and we're not able, because we haven't historically been able to have resources to go and plant that tree right away again, the community wants to do other things with that space. And why as a city, we might, remove a stop sign, replace a stop sign, like the community can understand why that's necessary. Some community members don't kind of understand that that tree is an integral part of the transportation corridor, doing all these other benefits to the community. So things like removing stumps, things like removing trees that are in very poor health, but that don't really meet the risk rating for us to go in and tackle that work today, because there's some other thing that is of higher risk in the community we really need to forward face. But we'd be remiss to not remove that tree now and plant the tree in its replacement while we're there doing the work adjacent to it. So using some dollars to make sure that we're really holistically solving the problem of missing trees in these parts of the community. So within that, also for the tree, like where we're gonna be, this is a map that shows how those equity and tree canopy coverage metrics are laid with then identifying street tree repair projects as part of the broader transportation model. So we've highlighted specific streets which meet those criteria in our areas. And part of what we're committing our dollars to is making sure that every tree gets planted on those streets. And we really do a good job of, repairing every issue there as a part of the street project and making sure every tree gets planted there. So we just want to be mindful of that work already going on and partnering with other city programs to make sure we're really doing everything there and not kind of leaving some things undone. And we have to then enter back in the community and disturb those neighbors again and kind of do our work. There's really a partnership there. As a part of that, besides those streets, those specific streets, we'll be using our resources in those other red areas and neighborhoods, identifying those areas in the most need and kind of doing that work of planting and establishing apart from the broader street projects. So here I want to talk about the watering, because as we've learned from the $50,000 we've had in the last 3 years, that the cost of planting is approximately 1/3. The cost and resource to establish that tree and make sure it's set to success costs about the other 2/3. And what this graph is talking about here is that's talking about, every year we plant a subset of trees, here's shown graphically as 5. And then that next year we have to water those 5 trees. Following year, we plant another neighborhood, right? So that's from the next 5 trees. Now we're still having to water the tree from the year before, as well as this. Now the watering we water year 1 trees once a week, year 2 trees every 2 weeks, year 3 trees every 3 weeks, because we want to wean them off the water and not go from full on saturation to experiencing the dry summers and really being shocked by that. But we need to make sure that we work to build capacity so that we're not out competing our ability to water. And we're not planting so many trees and spending all of our dollars there to where we can't then make those trees successful through the long run. And we're losing them to attrition via not being cognitive and attentive enough to that need. So it's really important. So we're planting during the winter months, which is best for the tree and best success rates. And then we're watering kind of all spring, summer and fall. So over this last 3-year season, we ramped up after 3 years of planting of having 1,700 trees then to water. And while we did the work of planting, we found that it was really hard. We learned about how much planting you need to do to water those trees and how to be successful in that. So we're bringing all that knowledge, that experience. That for us was a team of 4 seasonals, 2 watering trucks doing that watering work and coordinating all that work for them to make sure they were being successful. So that's tier 1. We just talked about the planting and the watering establishment. Tier 2 here a little bit again is about really removing barriers for us and being able to holistically plant those neighborhoods. That includes removing stumps as needed, removing trees that have hazardous situations associated with them are in really poor health right now. We want to get the most bang for our buck, that are causing potentially significant sidewalk problems that really shouldn't be on the community to replace, but right now it is. So how do we use some of those dollars to recognize that and help resolve that when possible? We don't want to be our primary work, but we do want to address it and not leave it languishing there. And then also soil prep. Soil is also part of this infrastructure, right? It's going to help this tree grow, but it's going to help the next one grow too. So if we can do things to amend soils where the soil is really one of the culprits causing secondary challenges, we can mitigate that now. We don't want to ignore that. We want to use some dollars before we face it.
Okay, I'm going to jump in now and talk about some of the framework that we've put in place for high-level objectives and outcomes as we head into this. First of all, as Spencer mentioned, planting and establishment is the highest priority. It's really the most visible impact, and it's the thing that we'll focus on. And then those mitigation and site prep projects will be focused on removing barriers from any of those plantings. Second, we're going to prioritize planting in underserved areas with the lowest canopy coverage and the highest socioeconomic vulnerabilities, which you saw we have, the direct ability to know exactly where those locations are. We're going to plant and establish an average of 450 new street trees annually with these bond funds. When combined with other planting initiatives, we really do strive to have 1,000 new street trees in the ground every year through the 5-year bond period. We're going to grow community through a minimum of 1-year volunteer planting event each season and expand our partnerships wherever we can to do this work together. We want to capitalize on this increased attention on street trees to make sure we're having a meaningful impact at the end of all this on our canopy coverage. We're going to rely on the strengths of both our in-house crew and expanded contractual services using the most cost-effective strategies throughout. And then importantly, seek ways to leverage our bond dollars wherever possible to increase this return on investment. So as we said, we're really early in this planning process, but we did want to set some, kind of a wet blanket of reality on this a little bit. 2 million is fantastic, and we are really thrilled that it's a step in the right direction. But if you ask me, these dollars just don't stretch as far as I hope that they would. So we want to be clear about what we believe we can accomplish through this influx of funding. And then as Spencer mentioned, we also want to make sure that we don't take too big of a bite that we can't sustain it after this funding has ended. So we want to be careful that we're balancing that really well. So we're really not far enough yet to say exactly how we're going to allocate this, but we thought it would be useful to give you just some sense of the scale, how that distribution might work. So first of all, I just think we really need to recognize that the coordination and planning entailed in scaling up this operation is a full-time workload. Individual site selections, managing contracts, the work of those contractors, acquiring trees, running the watering program, establishing, and then all the collaboration and reporting, that is going to be a pretty big lift. And so just off the top, we realized we don't have capacity for that in our small program currently. We have allocated a 3/4 time FTE for the employee, sorry to use acronyms, just off the top of the budget. So from there, based on our objectives and outcomes, this chart just shows one way we might be able to distribute those to give an idea. So if we plant an average of 100 trees at those 16 street repair projects that overlay with our high priority areas, that would account for 1,600 of our goal of 2,250 new trees. We'd then have 650 remaining trees that we could target in areas with the highest equity indicators. And then the tier 2 projects would have a budget of about $262,000 over the course of the 5 years. We just threw some spaghetti at the wall on how we might distribute that between those kinds of barrier removing projects. Okay. So again, as for the implementation plan, this is still conceptual, but we mainly want to point out how it's going to kind of ebb and flow through the 5 years of the process. So next year is year 0, and we're going to do a lot of planning work during that year so that we can hit the ground running, planting trees in that first year. Some things that we'll need to dig into in 2024 are the inventories of those street repair projects, so we can understand what the planting needs are exactly there and how much we need to allocate towards those types of plantings. And then to expand the capacity of our watering program. Years 1 through 3 of the bond are expected to be our highest yield planting years for both the street repair projects and equity-based plantings. The watering program will be in full effect, and tier 2 projects will be a low priority, except where absolutely necessary. We're going to front load the planting. By year 4, we'll begin to ramp that down to ensure that we have the capacity to establish those trees after the funding ends. We will need to keep pace with the planting needs for those street repair projects that will happen annually. So we'll continue to do those, but we will likely completely fade out the equity-based plantings at that point and instead focus on tier 2 types of projects in the underserved areas to prepare ourselves for hopefully continued funding and to be able to plant trees at that point. And then, of course, in year 5, we have to work to transition out of the bond, build a plan to establish. We'll have 2 more continued years of establishment from trees planted through these bond funds. And we'll focus, again, actively on those tier 2 types of projects, and basically prepare to scale our program either up or down, depending on the funding picture at that point. We're almost done here. Sorry, we're talking a lot. Now, okay, so basically just wanted to say that we plan to be back here annually, talking with you all, kind of updating you on the progress of the previous year, talk to you about our plans, map it out for the next year, get your feedback, get your input. There's going to be, the bond itself has significant oversight, accountability, and reporting requirements that we'll be participating in, but we really consider this commission to be kind of the group that we're actively keeping informed and having a feedback loop with. So that's our intention, is to keep you all well informed and to be available to you all when you have questions or want more information. So that's it in a nutshell. What do you think? Are we on the right track at this conceptual stage? What thoughts do you have? And do you have any questions?
1 second for a little time check here. And we are past where we said we would be. As I think we can probably, I don't know if we can even adjust it.
We can extend. I think this seems worth extending like 10 to 15 minutes because I want to make sure there's time for questions.
It's a great thing to
If you
do.
guys
I
are
just
able
want to
to
make
stay.
sure that we're all, and we'll either need to adjust our items later in the agenda or extend the meeting or something, which we can do. I think
really quick, looking at these, the approving bylaws and working agreements will not take 10 minutes, and the updates we can cut short too. So those are 2 areas we can.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. With that, we have at least a couple people here to start with. Go ahead.
Thank you so much for your presentation. I don't want to take up too much time, but I was just wondering if this plan that you have currently in place, does that accomplish our CAP 2.0 goal of 30% canopy by 2030?
Does not. I think what we're learning now, and we talked about this a little bit, all those different pressures of trees just naturally aging out of the system, development, climate change, pests associated with that, pressures associated with that, drought, stress, all these other things mean that we're actively losing approximately 700 trees a year to that process. So, this effort, we're talking about getting about 500 trees in the ground. We have some other money from council we're still going to continue to use and reuse. We're approaching kind of, based on those metrics, a break-even point rather than an increase, right? So while that is critically important, and these funds are going to help us achieve that, that's the reality of the situation. So we don't want to come to say it's terrible news, but it is really us increasing forward-facing that need and that challenge as a program. And we are hopeful that we don't have to ramp down at all at the end of the 5-year period, and the transportation bond and those types of resources and the community, right, identifies the need, the critical need for these trees to be successful, us to continue to build that urban forest. Not only just sustain the trees that we have now, part of it is a preservation thing, but we can only preserve trees for so long before they just naturally extend their life. So that's where we're at in it. I think this is great. Dollars is really helping us get to there, but it's also helping us realize the reality of where we're at and what it's going to then take, I think, to start advancing that cause in the future.
We probably need to be in the range of 2 million annually to really achieve the goal that we've set out in CAP 2.0 of reaching 30% by 2030.
By 2030, that's, if we're talking about it.
And the amounts in this were set in the bond itself. So they were all, that was what was put out to the voters and was approved. Right, so there was a committee of some sort that established how much was allocated toward what part of the bond. Laura.
I have a couple of quick things. Have you considered using recycled water for the watering truck?
Yes.
Are you?
Yes, so green infrastructure, the section that we represent has been formed for about 5 years. And since I became the section manager, we were gonna be using recycled water through the wastewater treatment plant. There's a lot of technicalities and legal requirements that they are continuing to sort through, but we really do think it's imminent. And from there, we will have to figure out how to navigate the routing so that we're not using more, greenhouse gases to get to where the recycled water is to use that. So that'll be something that we will be incorporating for sure at some point.
Question comment was, I was just imagining as you were talking about, basic overall benefits, just like little signs around town, just like, one tree can cool a neighborhood street by X. You just like little things, kind of different ones around town might help raise awareness. And then my last thing was about partnerships, because you can do more with partnerships. Like I'm assuming you've talked to Friends of the Trees and groups that do that, and maybe, I don't know, part of this could go into like fostering some kind of community tree planting, because so many people want to plant trees and would care for trees, and if they had a little tree ambassador in your block, there's so many examples you could find around the country of other like successful partnerships with communities that I'm sure you have already thought of that, but that came to my mind.
Yeah, for sure.
And there's also $2 million set aside that's unclaimed as a part of this subset money.
Unprogrammed.
Yes, for unprogrammed.
And
For
we're
us
gonna try to claim it.
for us to have partnerships with kind of like engineering and us partnering together to do something, and maybe we wouldn't do the tree, but because we can also solve another problem, it's the right thing to jump in that to solve that problem together, and maybe we get access to extra funds to do that. So that could also be, those are funds we're going to be looking at as to what's the criteria to access those, and eagerly.
Devin, I have a couple things here, I have a list. So really quick, the one that's mostly related to the street trees, and this kind of bouncing off of what Mitra and Laura both said, or so ideas that you have beyond, above and beyond this, to help meet that CAP 2.0 2030 goal would be great to hear. And then in hearing those, like, how can the commission help you make that a reality, or help you process the ideas you have beyond just we need this money or that? What are what other areas can we work on increasing the canopy, which then sort of segues into my next part, which is the non-publicly owned canopy.
Yeah, 80% of our urban forests.
Right. This is not a small number.
Yeah.
And it is a big issue for me personally, so what is the status of the new urban forestry plan? Where is that? I'm part of a neighborhood association that answered a lot of really detailed questions in a survey that went out. And that was maybe 2 years ago.
Yeah, we are making incremental progress, not as much as we would like. Scott Altenhoff, who some of you may know, used to be our management analyst in urban forestry, and he became the state urban forester for ODF. So he was the driving force in our management plan. And then we had somebody else filling that role who has also left the organization. So we are making progress. It's just not as quick as we would like. And I think that while we don't have a plan, these kinds of initiatives force us to prioritize and make strategies that are different for every area, which is what our updated plan will do. So I feel like we're doing some of the work just a little bit reverse engineered.
In Southeast, where I am, I just watch all trees being cut down, and it's like the last big vestige of trees is within the urban growth boundary, truly, and people are just cutting them down. It's crazy.
Yeah, and again, our urban forestry management plan will focus on publicly owned trees, and mostly in the right of way, mostly street trees. So we still have a long ways to go to change regulation and code around private trees. But that is not our active wheelhouse. We can just try to influence in those areas. But it's a big hurdle.
And then, so my last part is, what's the city's position, if you have any position on this? It may not be your wheelhouse, I'm not sure whose wheelhouse it is. Regarding the tree changes proposed or recommended by the Housing Production Advisory Council. I'm sure you're hearing a lot about this. In respect to increase housing.
Yeah.
The pressures to increase housing are significant, and we are advocates to make sure we're being aware of the full cost. So what that means in decisions we make. I think the pressures to increase housing on their own are enough, but other, state guidance that would allow, rules to be engaged or not engaged or is troubling to hear from our standpoint as people who actively work daily to preserve and protect and have these resources be the best they can be. We are currently taking a lot of state agency guidance. Scott Almoth, that Perry mentioned, is a part of that community engagement group for ODF, or Oregon Department of Forestry, is really the mouthpiece for a lot of our type of programs across the state. And we are definitely providing input to that process via him and other stakeholders. And that is also something we're going to have to get back to on, because it is quickly moving, and those pressures, we're seeing them more and more from just citizens wanting to, do middle income housing or other things on their specific lots and needing new driveways. There's a tree there, and it is one thing to lose a tree, it's another thing to lose a tree in perpetuity, that planting spot, right?
Right.
So
I think the equity issue there is, it's like a self-licking lollipop or something, it's like you're shooting yourself in the foot because you're trying to put canopy in areas that don't have it, but then you're saying, oh no, we need more housing in these areas and we can't have the canopy. So I just want to be sure that the commission is able to provide feedback about the importance of the canopy whenever we can.
I agree. And I think that, we are in the loop of those conversations, and I think that we can commit to, sharing with the commission through Danielle, when we get any new information, or if there's any ways to plug into the conversations and, give comment and feedback. We'll try to keep you guys advised.
Thank you. Sorry, I know that was a lot.
Yeah.
It's important
questions. Actually, you all covered some of my questions, but I'll actually one more specific one, and then more the slide is the 2022 proposed street bond projects, tier 1 planning projects with the streets highlighted in red.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure if I was understanding you. So you're combining the places where the streets need to be improved with the areas that are high priority street tree need areas. Is that right?
Yeah.
That's what this shows?
Yeah, absolutely. If there's 42 street repair projects, and if we were to plant out all 42 of those, that would be the entire 2 million, and we wouldn't be able to focus exclusively on the equity considerations that the bond called for. So we overlaid our maps to see where would any of those street tree project or street repair projects fall in our priority areas, and that came up with 16. So we decided those would be the 16 we would focus on planting out to the max capacity.
So I guess other than that, I mean, I really appreciate this presentation very much, and the work we're doing. I agree. When I heard the 2 million, I thought that's not nearly enough. So I think something that the group as a whole cares a lot about. We are glad to provide, this role of being feedback, and I wonder what we can do to assist you and support you. I don't know where that. How the decisions will get made about the 2 million unprogrammed, and if there's anything can do to help support you on that. And also sort of when you come back, what kind of feedback will you be looking for? It'd be really helpful if we knew, we want you to help us decide between this and this, or you know, whatever. And to do that somewhat in advance so we can think about it and give you good feedback and support.
Can I say one more quick? Oh, Dennis had it.
Yeah, sure.
But Dennis.
I didn't see. Okay, Dennis.
The main thing I just wanted to do is one kind of follow up with what people said. But also coming to the question of sustaining existing canopy. The commission previously had a group looking at issues around heritage trees. And our understanding at that point in time is we lacked OARs for a clear designation of heritage trees in the city, which might require property developers where such heritage trees were existing to work around them. To your knowledge, is there any progress on clarification of rules and status and OARs around heritage trees?
Well, we have some, they don't have great teeth. And so I don't think that, especially in private development, that we have a lot of enforcement capacity yet on that. And so I will, knowing that this is an issue that you're concerned about, I'll get a little more information about what is the possibility, is that on the docket to fix that regulation anytime soon? And if not, that might be an area that this commission may want to advocate.
Thank you.
I'll get you more info.
This kind of builds on that, is I'm wondering if when people are getting a permit for development, if you can't say you can't take down these trees, if you could say, if you're going to take down these trees, you need to pay this much extra because that's what it costs to replant in these other places. Just something like that, and maybe even on business licenses for arborists, if they had a little training or a little incentive where, like, if they don't to coach their customers, like maybe this tree doesn't actually need to come out. Sure. Or just a little checklist, something to kind of get them all on the same page.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you're really on a similar track that we've been on, which is to make sure that we are being the best support system we can for the private arborists. That's who developers and homeowners are going to hire to do the work. And so if we can make sure that they understand, the right choices to make, what's allowed, what's not allowed, they can help be advocates for that. So we've been spending a lot of time, being that liaison for the private arborists. And we feel like it's making a little bit of a dent, but they're at least a smaller group to educate than the entire community.
And for us, we also, publicly owned trees that get removed for a part of construction, if it's a little different if it's like a stormwater main that has to get replaced because it's timed out, right? Like we might have a practical need as an organization, as a community to repair infrastructure, and a tree, needs to be removed as a part of that. It's just a practical need that still need to be flush our toilets, right? As a community. But there's also development that says, I want my driveway to be here and my design needs the driveway to be here, and that, that means the removal of a tree. We participate in a conversation by more of a carrot approach, saying, hey, like the process is we'll evaluate that tree. Trees have a very surprisingly high value to a lot of people in the community, right? Like, a tree could range anywhere from $2,000 to $30,000 of value. Because of all the ecosystem benefits, because of the price of that tree at initial planting, because of all the time that tree has spent growing and what it's become now. So if trees are removed and it's a choice from a developer or homeowner, then we charge them. They are required to compensate the city for the value of the thing that the public feature that they're removing. As a part of that, that's public trees, not private trees. We then have the opportunity, we're having conversations on our team about like, how is that money, right, is being paid back because of the tree removal. How are we investing that back in the tree program, right? And in the planting. And I think really in the planting and the follow-up of those situations is where we should be spending this money, where we advocate for that to be spent. And I think there's an opportunity there because there are some high value trees that get removed, but that could really plant a lot of trees as a follow-up. So I think that's one of those opportunities.
Can I say one more quick? Sure. My next door neighbor did a development and there was a huge tree and he just because he loves trees, he was like, you cannot cut that tree down because the city was gonna make him cut the tree down. City of Eugene, because he had a gravel parking area and they made him do this big cement one because there were gonna be houses in the back. And so he had to this big fight and to move everything over to save this tree, but like, so I feel like within the city, there's like the requirements for parking and the
Right.
fire truck getting back there and like
Sidewalk.
Competing priorities.
yeah, so if there's any way to, in this process to kind of, when there's a big tree, like, I mean, he did it, because he was just like, there, you are not cutting down that tree. And
Yay,
but
hey, your neighbor.
yeah, but I think he's an abnormal developer, and this is just, you know, one anecdotal.
That's normally great.
Yeah, he's abnormal.
So yeah, we recognize to meet those metrics, we're gonna not only have to plant a lot of trees, but have a preservation focus, right? To keep those large trees for as long as we can and sustain them in our forest hopping, so. That's the work we do every day, we're trying to do.
So Dennis's comment reminded me that when we had our committee looking at these issues, some of these issues, we decided to try to focus our efforts on heritage trees because we thought that was something that we could actually do. And we actually ended up, the former commissioner was actually working directly with Scott, I believe at the time. And came to the conclusion that really maybe the best advice coming from the Sustainability Commission was to get the urban forestry plan redone because it was really needed. So I understand the staffing challenges that sounds like you've been having. Is there anything else that we can do to support that? And it sounds like you're not expecting that urban forestry plan to address the private property challenges at all.
No.
We don't have the authority over those, and so we can't. But we are going to be making recommendations through this updated plan. And that's what they will be as recommendations. But there will be batons to carry from that. So I think it will be helpful.
I think a large part of what we do every day as a team, as individuals of leadership, are trying to make those relational connections with other team members, right, other stakeholders, those of influence, so that when we get to the position of us having to make a choice together, we've invested a lot in that process, and you know, we're in the best position to have that pay out for us, the trees, the community. So.
Well, thank you. Thanks for.
Thank you, sorry for running so long. I appreciate the great conversation. Thank you. Thank you. And I will definitely get you some information, more information on a couple of these questions for you.
Have a cookie.
Right?
I think I need a sandwich.
With you. Burrito. Okay, cool. Well, thank you so much for coming and have the rest of your night.
Awesome, thank you. And we will be back when we start to solidify a plan a little more to give you something to chew on. Sounds so conceptual.
All right, so next item is a letter to city council about the Google thermal heating system. Unfortunately, Alexi, who drafted it, isn't with us tonight. But if we can talk about it, y'all have had a chance to look at the draft that was sent to you. I mean, is that a good plan for people to go ahead and talk about it? Wait, and see where we go. Okay. I know that have most of you had a chance to review it. I know that Danielle and Ian had some feedback. We had some discussion about what's the best way, or how will this get processed? And there were some additional information in the packet from the intergovernmental relations manager as well that are kind of relevant. I don't know, you guys want to say something to start, or?
So there are a couple of issues. I think the way in which the draft was written, I think some of the IGR issues weren't necessarily triggered, but when the commission, so if the letter had been addressed to U of O directly from the commission, then we would have triggered IGR things. And then there's an entire city process, and that's been shared with the commission. I think we'll share that again, but there's an entire process to basically make sure, because the commission represents, you are the Eugene Sustainability Commission, to make sure that we're talking with one voice and that, you know, everything that is being communicated and the relationship with University of Oregon is complicated. And so we just want to make sure that whatever we're doing is in line with that. Because this was done, addressed to council, it was a slightly different perspective on this. And it was trying to think through the lens of the city council doesn't necessarily have the ability or the authority to tell anybody on campus what to do. They don't really have a lever to pull there. So what would be the best way to raise this as an issue with council? And I think in some of the discussion that Danielle and I had with Jan and Devin was there's definitely value in surfacing this as a topic. This is something, it's related to our cap. It's related, you know, it's important. It's a really big project. It could, you know, be an opportunity for campus and the Eugene community to demonstrate leadership on something that could be a really big deal. And that, you know, based on the commission looking at this, that the commission had thought that option 4 would be the best. And maybe the opportunity would be to then just raise awareness with council and to say, we encourage you to look into this issue, to weigh in if you want, and then they give them an opportunity to actually, you know, there's a letter that's circulating, there's a number of different ways in which they can actually input on this. Mostly thinking about the fact that they don't have a lever to pull to basically tell the president of the University of Oregon to make a decision on something. You know, there's not a lever there. So how, you know, what is kind of the role that the commission wants to play in terms of surfacing this issue with council and getting them to pay attention to it?
And I guess I would also add that there was an open community letter going around, which I think that actually Alexi shared with us all, and that people were signing on to. I believe that has already been concluded and sent off now, which it had when we talked before, so I don't think that that's.
Is that the letter that some council members have already signed on to? Got it, okay.
So I don't think that's an option anymore, but so does anybody have any thoughts or comments about this? Or I just ramble on. Oh, Laura, sorry. Our clever little system, I have to remember to look.
I think we can only write to council, so I think the letter is great. It does that. We know that they don't have a direct lever to pull, but that's okay. At least we're putting our voices out there. That's all we can do. So I think we should sign this letter or present this letter to council. Put our voices out there.
I think this version that's in the packet when we talked about it, the 4 of us, we kind of came up with some language about it, so we could maybe make a few edits saying if this is an important community issue and we want to make sure that they're aware of it and encourage it. So just clarify a little bit what the perspective we're coming to it from.
And I think that's really the value of this commission is for something that council may or may not be paying attention to because they don't have the bandwidth. They're focusing on a lot of different things to say, hey, there's something going on in this community. We as the commission think this is an important thing for you to pay attention to. I think the one staff, I think the one issue where I feel like, and maybe this is not the right opportunity for that, but if the commission wants to maintain and establish itself as sort of a trusted advisor to council on issues related to climate and sustainability, part of this is kind of doing the research and getting into the topic in a way that council can't. You know, and that's, I think, where the really value added is. That's where the values from the committee comes from. That's where the values from all these other things do. The question I think that could be raised here is, do you think that, you know, has the commission done that on this particular topic? And I know there's a timing issue and it wasn't necessarily set up as a committee, but, you know, has the commission learned enough about this topic to feel that it can weigh in? And does that affect in any way how you want to communicate this to council in terms of the ask? And is it just raising awareness, or is there an ask also associated with that, and thinking about kind of how that might come from council to think about what is the best way to position yourself to basically elevate this topic with council in a way that continues to maintain your ability to be sort of seen as a trusted advisor for them on sustainability topics.
And this is how
I got a hand up out here in Zoom land.
yeah.
Thank you for speaking up. I can't see you behind me.
Yeah, so I'm suggesting we might add, I think it's a good letter. I think it's a topic that it's appropriate for us to weigh in, particularly as we asked last time, as we discussed our last meeting, that heating plant is the largest emitter of methane gas currently in the city. And maybe add a paragraph that says something like, the commission hopes that the council working with intergovernment relations, will engage with the U of O and support the options that have the greatest impact in meeting CAP 2.0 goals. And I think that might be, a step we're urging the council to make in the goals that we're here to help promote. So that kind of language, we hope the council will, take action to encourage the university and work with intergovernmental relations to do that. Because the city can encourage the university,
Can I add something in response to that? And kind of to follow up on what Ian said, I think, I agree. I think this would be a good topic to elevate to council because they might not be where this is going on. But I think without this commission having done a deeper dive and asking a lot of the questions that, Karen brought up last time and Devin brought up last time, and without knowing like the financial picture that U of O that's also, constraining the choices that they have. And if they choose the most expensive option, does that mean they're going to have to raise tuition? Like, I think there's a lot of factors that this commission hasn't necessarily explored fully. And without having done that deeper dive, I think it would be best to advise council for them to do some more research and point to very specific, include ways for them of where they can get more information. And then if we are going to recommend that they take action and, make their voice heard about what is the way that they can do that. Like I think as advisors to council, there needs to be a very specific, what is it? Like, can they sign a letter? Where is it? If we want them to get more information, what's the links? What's the events coming up?
Right, Danielle, and the intent of the kind of language I was proposing was to suggest that the council through intergovernmental relationships would urge the university as a be a partner in meeting CAP 2.0 goals. And I mean, part of it is the information that Alexi added at the end of the letter was around what I'm understanding from what I'm hearing in the larger community is the direction the university is leaning towards going anyway, which is ground source heat pumps. And I can tell you from personal experiences, the former director of Moss Street Children's Center, the university has been using ground source heat pumps since 2005 to heat buildings. So, it's an issue that is timely. They're coming to a decision about how they're moving forward. And if we don't speak up in some form now, urging the council to, whether our language says we hope the council will explore this further, and directs, bring intergovernment relations into that process. I know, for example, that the university is part of the, community-wide climate collaborative, that university staff are in communication with city staff on a regular basis around just these kinds of issues. So it's not something that's not happening already. It's just trying to urge the council to be maybe more assertive and speak up.
Thanks. Yeah, I guess I would like to add, I think we could, do a few revisions of this, but we could, rather than, kind of back all the way back, I think what Alexi was trying to do in the end of this was to pull out the criteria. The reasons why we don't have to say choose this option, but we encourage you to, to be our partner in trying to meet CAP 2.0 goals, and that would include an option that will do these things. So rather than saying one particular option because those things might change, but to say, making the most impact as possible.
The criteria that help,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Climate action goals.
So
to choose the option that helps
best addresses these. So am I hearing generally that people are in favor of proceeding with a letter, maybe trying to do a few updates and edits to this a little bit and then get it out? So we can certainly do it, we'll do that and get it out to the group. I don't know if we need to come back and approve it in a meeting. Or,
With time, is this something we want to edit right now, or do we want to have an edit? Resubmitted.
Edit right now and vote.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you,
It's okay.
Ian.
Go ahead.
Can we just make edits right now
That's what I was asking.
and vote today?
Yeah, I saw Devin, not again.
I think otherwise it's gonna be.
Get tough. Okay, all right.
So, I mean, well, I'll just be really straightforward. I think what I would like to see added to this to make it a little bit stronger is how city council can find out more information. And then, how can city council encourage UO? I mean, I know Dennis kind of just pointed to a couple different things. So do we want to spell those out in this letter so that it's all kind of right there for council?
Well, I would
or-
think that ways both that they can get more information and provide their feedback would be through contacting the lead staff on this, who are, the various facilities people. We'd have to get their, information. I'm not sure who the exact conduit would be, but, both of those.
We urge city council to choose an option that, and then.
That was my
Yeah,
question based on
yes.
what Devin had said, which is, and you can even say, the commission believes option 4 is the best option. Because you
Based on the information we have now, it
Yes.
appears that
stated
option
your
4.
affirmative opinion.
Right.
We encourage council to choose an option that represents the best opportunity for, here are the criteria that he's laid out. That feels like you've looked into this as a body yourself, you've come up with an opinion, you've said, we encourage, this is important, we encourage you to pay attention to this. Consider weighing in on an option that meets the following criteria that will help us meet our cap goals.
I have a process suggestion that we might vote on, that we support the letter as written conceptually, with an understanding that a small working group would work with staff to clarify the language in a way that reflects our discussion from tonight. So rather than try to do, cooperative wordsmithing in a group, that we would authorize, perhaps co-chairs and Alexi, working with staff to, finalize a version consistent with what our discussion has been tonight. Does that seem like a process step we might take?
I love that, Dennis, because I think wordsmithing
Yeah, this is
in
gonna be
a
good, yeah.
group is very hard.
Yep, okay. I'm
But it
just
sounds
gonna
like we
kinda
have
highlight
general
what I've
agreement about
changed.
the kinds of changes we want to see.
So,
Does somebody want to put a motion for that then?
Yeah, you want to make that motion, Dennis?
Yeah, I move that we support the letter conceptually and empower a small working group of co-chairs and Lexi to work with staff to create a final version consistent with the conversation at this meeting.
Second?
Second.
Okay, Gary, thanks. All in favor? Okay, we got it. Thank you very much, everybody.
thanks, Dennis.
Good job.
I was not.
I've done policy long before. I worked with the university bureaucracy and state.
All right, so moving on, we have an action item to approve the bylaws and working agreements, the edits, which were in your packet. I don't think there was a whole lot different from what you'd seen before, a couple of little things.
There were some super small like typo changes that the city manager's office had. The one sort of medium-ish change was the concept of the liaisons, which I emailed all of you. So should I paraphrase?
Yes.
Okay, so basically, what was written originally in our working agreements was this idea that members of this commission could act as liaisons to other boards and commissions that city council has. So there's like the budget committee, the human rights commission. And last meeting, we had, people had volunteered themselves to act as those liaisons. That was sort of when the city managers often saw that, they saw that word liaison, it sort of was a red flag for them because liaisons has a bigger, more official meaning, I think, in a lot of the other code language that's bigger than what this commission intends for that to be. And so they suggested changing it to commission assignments. And so it would function in the same way. The one element that they wanted removed was any staff support that would be required. So basically, if you volunteered to fulfill one of those commission assignments to another committee or a board, you'll just have to go online and go to their website and access their meeting materials in that way. It's all publicly available, but a staff liaison from another thing is not going to be sending you information on a regular basis. So,
but we still think it's a good idea that we should identify ourselves to those staff.
it's not even necessary. Yeah. So if you want to, you can like, would you do that, I guess?
Danielle and I emailed a little bit too about the Envision Eugene Technical Advisory Committee has a designated slot for a member of this commission that I've been doing. And that would fit that kind of criteria as liaison. And
that's a little bit different. That is actually a liaison.
Yeah.
And that's like in code that we need to have that. So
That's something typically council approved to have that designation.
Yes. Yeah, the council said that there's a slot for a member of the Sustainability Commission to serve on that group.
So that was the big change to the working agreements, and that change was included in the meeting packet, so.
Any other questions or comments about the working agreements or the?
But, and to say, and like, I just want to emphasize, they did really like that, the idea of increasing collaboration across boards and commissions, so don't feel like this was a squash of like, don't do that. It just was a little bit of a language change.
It was about a word.
It totally makes sense. I just think, I guess for myself, I would feel like if I don't, at least once I get to the meeting, I should try to get there early and say, by the way, I'm here, you know.
Yeah, and I think given what happened on Monday with the discussion of the Human Rights Commission and, you know, this as a topic came up during that conversation as, well, there's potential synergies between the two commissions who are actually presenting today. You know, it'd be great if we could understand what each other going on. So like, yeah, there's support for that. And I think there's an opportunity to kind of build and, you know, develop some of those relationships. I think there's a lot of benefit.
So have a motion to approve the bylaws and working agreements. All in favor, yay. All right, thanks, everybody. That's a big piece. I love it.
Work plan, bylaws, working agreements, check.
Okay, let's do that. So now can we start making our dates?
Oh, yeah.
These have been approved.
Say again?
Yeah, to the committee dates can.
Oh,
can
yeah,
meet.
yeah, yeah.
That's the big update is like council approved the work plan on
Everything.
Monday and committees. So,
That was my big update.
sorry.
It was great. Danielle did an awesome job getting us ready and doing her part of the presentation. And we think it went well. The response, I don't know if you all got to see any of it, was very positive, I thought, from all the counselors. I think they were very in favor of the work, the emphasis that we have on outreach and education and engagement with the community and with other parts of the city as the liaisons and just, you know. Overall, I thought it was great, and they approved the work plan and the committees. And I think that was great. Now, if there was more you wanted to say about that. I just thought it was, please, thank you very much for all your hard work on it.
So just Lily, it was so just on Monday night, we had a meeting, we made our work plan for 2024, which we have to do every year. And then we have to present it to council and the mayor and city managers there as well. And they have they have an opportunity to ask questions and then they vote whether to approve our work plan or send us packing or whatever they want to do, but they didn't. And they asked some pretty good questions as well. And it was my first time and it was Jan's first time. So and your first time, I know we were all just like,
up there.
so that's just a little quick background of what we're talking about.
And it's interesting because the work plan has to get done fairly quickly after we have a break in the summer and then get processed and get to them. But it all needs to be done before we can really kind of dig into the work. So it's sort of an interesting process.
I'm gonna need to step out and I'll do a follow-up looking at minutes in terms of the updates and stuff. And just a reminder, and Jan, I'm officially asking for an excused absence. I will be out of the country in both December and January. So I'm gonna need to step out.
Okay, all right, I guess we'll let you do that.
Bye.
Take good care.
I shared, I'm not logging in from South Africa. It's a very different time zone.
It's okay.
Any other updates from other commissioners? Here?
Could you tell us the dates of the next couple meetings?
We're actually not meeting in December.
Right.
So our next meeting is the third Wednesday in January. So January 17th. I think the goals for December is get committees up and running. My goal will be to get Lily fully onboarded. Line out, the presentations and stuff for the rest of for the next few months. But yeah.
I might not be here in January either.
Okay.
I might try to log in from
The Caribbean?
Mexico. I
We
mean,
don't
it's
allow
possible.
that. That's not okay. in
It's not okay,
January.
okay, I like that attitude. Well, and I also wanted to point out that, as far as Alexi goes, he is the acting director of the New Buildings Institute. He's a mechanical engineer. And there was actually, there was a huge article in the Weekly a couple weeks ago. I wish I would have sent it out to you guys, but all about this geothermal system. So, and then he also was working directly with U of O to try to move the needle on it. And something that's really curious to me as I listen to the tree guys, people on and us talking about this, U of O is part of this city and it should be participating in the same rules and regulations that everybody else has to. And when you're doing a climate action plan, it's kind of confusing to me because this separation of public and private is kind of murky in my brain. I can't quite get a hold of it, besides the public-private partnership. I don't know, is the climate action plan a law or just it's a resolution from the city and what we can do?
So the CRO is an ordinance.
Right.
But the cap was basically, so that was actually adopted by council, and then the cap was simply approved. And so it's a statement of intent to how we can meet our goals that are
But
covered by
an
the CRO.
ordinance is a law,
Yes, and so the CRO is law.
but.
So the cap was not an ordinance.
Right, but. I mean, I don't know exactly what it says, but does it say something about responsibility of building owners and developers and power plant operator? I mean, isn't there any teeth in anything? I mean, otherwise it's a kind of a free-for-all. I don't know.
Yes, and part of the idea, well, I mean, I think the reality is there are, under home rule, there are limitations on the powers available to cities. And I think one of those is limitations on the ability to regulate state-owned land. There are federal buildings in Eugene, they're not part of the cap, they're not subject to a bunch of rules that the city might have because they, there's jurisdictional issues that go on there. So yes, there can be, the folks from Parks kind of talked about this a little bit. There are limits with some of the teeth that are available
But
for
there's
certain things.
there's a state climate action. Plan.
Yes, and part of their cap planning on campus is to meet the state goals. But yes, I think part of the idea of having the Eugene Climate Collaborative and these large shareholders was the idea that, you are people who take big swings at this. And, we'd like to get to the table to come up with commitments to help us meet our goals. But they're ultimately voluntary. UM has goals, they're voluntary. Northwest Natural has goals, they're definitely voluntary. All of these were voluntary with the hope that we can work together to continue to move this forward. But yes, it does lack certain teeth. That's why for us, something like the State Building Performance Standard, which came online, is actually really helpful in helping us meet our climate goals because it's going to impact a lot of commercial buildings in Eugene. And so like things like that, where we maybe lack certain abilities to enforce things, we also try to leverage things going on at the state level as well to supplement that.
Well, what's fascinating to me about that is that I would think that, that creates a gray area too, because there's buildings like at the U of O, but there's also the energy is being generated. They have their own little power plant operation there. There's rules and regulations towards that too. I don't know.
Yeah, they're regulated under DEQ for that.
Right, so.
And LRAPA, I think, permits that. So it's actually LRAPA for here, but.
Yeah, so different governments have their own climate action plans that they're own trying to do. I do think part of one of the public comments tonight was about what's become of the climate collaborative and is that still a thing? And is there going to be any, public input or any, basically visibility or any public input into any of that? So I think that's an interesting.
I just wanted to comment on Karen. So Karen, if you look up there's interesting information on the U of O website. They have their own climate action plan 2.0. It's called this, like you were just saying.
Right.
And it lists the studies that they're doing. And apparently there are supposed to be completed by next year, a bunch of them, right? And then there's 4 main categories of those, and they have all links and you can click on those. Not that I'm saying you have to do this, but you know what I mean? You can look and you can see where are they actually, what are they doing? Or what are their goals at least? And my guess, I haven't looked at them, but they're probably fairly aligned, I would think on some level, but.
Yeah, and similarly, so the city did its cap. And then the county did its, and there's a lot of parallels between those. The county has much bigger impacts because of landfill. That's the biggest by far emitter of emissions for the county, but those are in alignment as well. So yes, there's constant conversation to figure out, okay, what are we doing, particularly now in the Bill and Ira era? There's all of these conversations that are going on amongst all these different entities to figure out, what are the partnership opportunities? How can we leverage these different resource opportunities to bring resources to help solve problems, to fund projects? So yes, I think for many of the stakeholders who are part of the Eugene Climate Collaborative, those conversations are ongoing as an official kind of entity that kind of went away with COVID for various reasons. Staffing concerns. There are certain agencies who still don't have climate people in roles that were filled 2 years ago for budgetary reasons, other things. So as it was constituted back then, it doesn't exist, but conversations are occurring regionally to try and figure out how we can continue to sort of, meet some of our goals. I think, our cap at some, I probably shouldn't say this out loud, but I think our cap probably needs to be updated. It was developed before COVID. Things have changed, and I think, not soon, in the next couple of years, we'll probably revisit.
Don't say that.
I think it's gonna be worthwhile to revisit the cap, because I think, the world has changed, and I think thinking through that, I think a lot of things have changed, and I think, we'd want to think through kind of what the next version of the cap would be, but we're not ready for that, but that's kind of a longer term plan. I think I've been thinking about a little bit as part of this program.
Well, on one of the things with the cap, is it okay? Can I go?
She has her hand.
Oh, go ahead.
Mine was just logistical questions about the committee. I don't know if we wanted to continue the conversation.
Well, we're over our time, so we should probably kind of wrap up there. I think we should talk about committees. Go ahead. How about if you finish up, Karen, and then we'll talk about committees.
One of the things with the climate action plan, as that gentleman pointed out, is that are we meeting our goals? And I mean, one of the things with the greenhouse gas inventory is that it would be repeated every 2 years, and I think COVID definitely changed things and staffing and everything else, so,
So we're still doing that, so the
is it
2020,
published somewhere though, is it
On our website.
on our sustainability?
yeah,
Well,
so, yeah. And the historical ones are there as well, but yes, we both the community-based inventory as well as the city operations inventory are both
Okay,
on
I'll
our
take a
website.
look at that. The other comment that I have, not related to the climate action plan, but is, again, I bring this up like a lot. We just went through a whole bunch of stuff today, presentations from the public. Are we responding to any of that stuff, we didn't come up with a leaf blower committee, but are we going to, or did we, maybe I missed it, are we writing a letter to the city council about that? Where are we at? With these things, I mean,
My memory is when that came up last time, I think you shared with us, Karen, that you felt at that time the city council wasn't gonna be necessarily
Emily,
anxious to hear that.
Emily.
Is it Emily said that? Okay, it was Emily. Emily, I think, okay, that must have been, I think Emily shared with us, you're right, sorry. Emily shared with us that she didn't think the city council was.
Particularly receptive to that.
Right, so I think that's why we didn't go further with that was, I think it was a significant blanket on them.
Well, and I guess that today what we did was we referred those folks to bring it up at the council, right? So that was good. I just want to make sure that we're responding in some manner to some of these things, like the guy with the website, maybe we would tell him that it's something that's on our plan and, just.
Okay.
Thoughts anyway.
So should we talk a little bit about committees, getting committees rolling? Hannah?
Yeah, I joined during COVID and it was just, there's been a lot of changes since then, so. Do you do the scheduling? Okay.
No, so I think the process as it is now is so we have 3 committees that have been voted on and approved by y'all and now council, and each of those has a sort of a sponsor, I think that's what we're calling that person. And that person is in charge of scheduling the meeting. And I'll I'll logistically set up the meeting.
Okay, that's what I was gonna.
But the committees are led entirely by the
But you
commission.
won't attend.
I'll attend,
Okay.
yes, but I'm not gonna be leading it.
So you need to include Danielle in the scheduling, knowing who, who's available when.
And I will probably staff the building one, so to include me in that one.
And they're usually during the day? Or?
I think that's really up to you.
Okay.
It may be an issue for Danielle, but.
And your availability.
Yeah.
Yeah. If it's gonna be evenings, not all 3 of them can certainly, definitely be evenings. Maybe one could, but I need to know in advance, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's one
So that I would really strongly encourage the committee sponsors to get that rolling. I mean, that is something that can happen over this period of time when we're not having a meeting, and now that we actually have approval. So, yeah, I sort of forgotten that we didn't have a December meeting, which makes, I'm not, saying we should, but it's like, oh yeah, let's not lose that momentum. Let's keep going.
Because we could still have December committee meetings.
For sure, I think it's a
Yeah.
good time to get them started.
And the third Thursday, or the third Wednesday in December is the 20th.
Right.
And so for scheduling, staffing was not gonna be available for.
Right, understood.
For December.
Yeah.
Who are the committee sponsors? I know Lexi's decarb, your waste prevention,
That's it.
and your outreach and education.
Education.
Okay. And Lily, if you're in, I'll talk with you more offline about the committees, but if you want to join a committee, you can.
All right, is that it? Anything else for the good of the order?
Change the clocks.
Thank you.
Oh, I know.
Thank you all. Happy holidays.
Right.
See you before then.